Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show, 85. PvP discussion with Phaiden, who's joining us today. He's not here on cam, but he's in TeamSpeak with us. Say hello, Phaiden.
Hello.
And we have obviously Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
And Lex is with us as well. So, we promised you guys that we're going to do a second show on PvP. And Phaden's going to help us with this show today and talk about a few of the things that he sent us per email. Do you want to go and start it off, Phaiden?
Yeah, sure. And one thing I do want to point out is, you know, my preference is PvE, but I always do gravitate towards PvP. So, and it seems like Pantheon is more geared toward PvE. So, I know we'll get some thumbs downs, but hopefully this will be a good stream. So, one of the first topics, and let me give a quick background. So I do have a fairly extensive PvP background. So did it in obviously World of Warcraft, EverQuest. So EverQuest, they had arena duels, and my friend and I were rogues when they had the GM events, and then we would hide stealth. So one of the things I'm going to kind of lead into is the open world PvP and how that, you know, experience and stuff, like what would be beneficial within Pantheon. So my suggestion was have the ability to be a PvE server, which it sounds like they are, and then they're going to have a PvP shard, but allowing the PvE individuals to queue up for that PvP shard. So that would be like the first topic.
Okay, so I think those are ways that have been, you know, or in modern MMOs that have been done in quite a few, where you can basically you're not shard bound. You can switch around. A few modern MMOs are trying this. Your traditional PvP and PvE is always split up in two. And we already talked about something similar to this on the past show in relation to having PvP interact with PvE in a passive kind of approach. So basically having PvP events affect PvP events and vice versa. And I think going the route that you're suggesting here, where you can basically create your character, play on a PvE server, and then if you want to go and do a bit of PvP, take that character and go over there and just, you know, go and do your thing. I think that's actually an interesting thought and a good way of maybe compensating to the masses, because there's going to be people that want to do both, and there's definitely a lot of people. I'm one of them. Ever since Landmark, where you could basically go on any shard you wanted. You could go and visit any server, any shard, any continent you wanted. You weren't server bound. The only boundaries that you had was where you basically had your land that you plotted. So I myself would most probably even find an interest to the PvP mechanical side of the game if it's an option to me to take my character and just, you know, go visit the PvP shard. And then
it could be like a 24-hour lockout period. So, you know, within 24 hours, you know, because your adrenaline does increase in an open world environment. Because, you know, you were mentioning Lexer used to gank you a lot when, you know, you're in Stranglethorn Vale or just different areas. Well, I know it wasn't Lexer, but you know, used to get ganked.
Yeah. You know, that was.
I ganked too.
That was basically the experience. Basically, the experience that I got basically from you know, World of Warcraft, like, and it did put me off, because I'm starting out with my character. I'm basically level 1.001 or whatever. I'm just starting off, and there's this dude running around killing everybody that's you know, just basically logging into the game for the first time. So it does put you off, like, and it gives that false perception that PvPers are all about their alter ego.
Yeah.
You know, when it's necessarily not the case. You know, they are smart, intelligent, clever people that do want to enjoy the game as well. But then you got those people out there that give it a bad image, and for somebody like me that never played PvP, it puts me off real fast. It's like, you know, I don't want to go and play with these people. If that's the mentality they're gonna have, then, you know, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah, but so I have competitive arena stuff a little bit later, but
Mm.
one thing I do want to point out is, I did hit field marshal, which is like the second toppest rank for WoW for someone when back in vanilla, and then I did hit 2200 rating for the arena duels back in Burning Crusade, and then Lich King. But what WoW did really well for their open world PvP is they had safe zone and safe areas. So I did originally a PvP character in EverQuest 1, but that was a huge gank fest because I didn't jump in until Plains of Power,
Mm.
and the developers, or SOE, relied on the community not to gank each other consistently.
Yeah.
And there were periods where we did get hit heavily hard. So if there's a hybrid where you can be PvE and then say for the next 24 hours or whatever period, you can jump into both worlds and experience both, because PvP is a fun adrenaline rush when it's done right.
Yep. And it would be interesting as well. Sorry, Lex. Go on. I'll let you.
I just say I agree. I mean, I do enjoy some PvP games. I mean,
Mhm.
I love PlanetSide 2. I played a little bit of For Honor. I like the zombie apocalypse style PvP games, stuff like that. I like a lot of the shooter types, but
Mm.
I've never been a fan of an MMORPG's style PvP, simply for the fact that it's a little bit of both the way that particular segment of the community, the mentality of it, and also that it's really hard to get the PvP mechanics down right when you're splitting your focus between PvP and PvP.
Yeah, and that's the thing though as well. You know, that's what, you know, where I respect VR is they're taking, you know, especially the class, because that's been the biggest issue that these MMOs have when they offer both, is one of them's going to suffer because they're gonna drift towards one or the other, whatever's in popular favor or whatever the developers put as their primary focus. But with VR, they're going to split them. You're going to have your PvE character balancing, your PvP character balancing. They're not going to affect each other, and hopefully, they put as much time and devotion into the mechanics around all of this to both. You know, they give the same respect that they give the PvE mechanics, your acclamation system, the perception system, AAs, this, that, and the other, as well. The same devotion and time towards PvP.
Yeah.
That's going to be the most important thing for them to basically focus on. Because, you know, I just want to quickly address as well what you said earlier on, Phaiden. You know, even though we are PvE and the main focus is PvE for Visionary Realms, doesn't mean that we're not going to have any respect or any interest in what happens to the PvP service. For this game to succeed, we're going to cover all aspects. Now, we might not be, you know, the typical PvPers and everything, but we're going to show it just as much passion and devotion. That's what we're trying to bring across. We're trying to bring in elements from the PvE that would benefit PvP going forward and adding more than just that competitiveness. There's a lot more to PvP than just being competitive, than following a leaderboard and trying to be the best of the best. There's so much that they could add. Strategy, where you as a group have to really think and rely on each other, where, you know, your healer actually does need protecting, and where the healer is basically not drawn in the front focus. Hey, we're going to go and try and kill him first because he's keeping a group alive, and you're just running around in circles crying like a baby as a healer because everybody else is dead in your group. So there's a lot more to it.
Agreed, and I totally agree with that. And the one thing I'd love for them to do, which may not actually be okay, is them actually have dedicated people to PvP itself. who don't actually deal with the PvE, focus on the PvP, so that maybe, as you rightly say, or let's just focus on the damage dealers, the spellcasters first, wipe them out. That you get special items that will give them some sort of a mana shield or some sort of a shield which you can't get in the PvE style play type of thing. So they can split it that way, I think.
Yeah.
And to kind of touch on what Nilla was saying earlier, Guild Wars 2 did a really good job about it, because they treat their PvP, I mean, it's like two separate instances. So when they're doing balancing, it really that didn't, from my perspective, didn't seem to hit the PvE when they were doing balancing issues on the PvP side, because it seemed like they were two separate domains, servers.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, cool. I'll look at the document. Anything you want to add, Lex?
All I can really add is, from a programmer's perspective, is that splitting the systems up the way that VR has said that they're going to is really a smart idea. I know a lot of people out there are going to think that, oh, it's just, to do this, you could just say, if player do this, if not do that. It's like, well, in the grand scheme of things, yes.
Alright. The interesting thing, though, the interesting thought about this as well is being able to switch over from shard to shard. Is how would that affect your gameplay going forward? If you've got your quests open, and you can jump from server to server, that's going to be the trickiest part of balancing that out and adding options as well for the player. For instance, let's say, I'm a PvEer, and I want to basically do all my quests, all my stories, everything on the PvE server. But then again, I want to go in and jump on a PvP server because I want to just go and test my skill, test my luck, do a bit of arena fighting and everything. How they can balance that out and give us options to say, hey, if I do go over there, it's just going to be clearly for arena battling and stuff like that, because I don't want to necessarily mess up my quests or anything like that. If you get what I mean.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like the rewards.
Yep.
I mean, what do you do with any rewards you get from the PvP side? How can you bring them back across? Type of thing. That might mess up the balance of the PvE side.
So I'm probably saying his name wrong, but Savarti has a good point, which would be a con. There are problems with jumping between servers because it's out of the idea, of the community, a server as a community. And I mean, if you add to repercussions, I'm not sure what repercussions, but yeah, I mean, it does take out the personal relationship. Like Brad was saying, is he's relying on the community to govern each other.
Well, an interesting thought just came to me with what you just said and what Svarty just mentioned as well. It all depends on how it's done. If they did it like Landmark did, where you had your different shards, your different islands, you had your lava biome with deciduous desert, you had your deciduous biome with desert, you had your rainforest biome with lava. So they had different kind of biomes basically, so you could jump from one biome to the other. Now, thinking about that, if they kind of built their world where each zone or area per se was its own individual server, then that would kind of break down that problem, because you'd only have all the people that are on the South Sol server would be on that server there. They'd be able to communicate with themselves in that aspect. So they wouldn't be able to communicate with anybody else in Avendir's Pass, in Thronefast, in this. So that's another way of breaking that down, because you'd still be on a separate server, but you'd still be connected to everybody else. But when you go and zone to the next one, you're leaping server for server, so you'll lose that chat aspect. So that's one way of doing it technically, is splitting it up into different servers.
Thinking about it mechanic wise, or behind the scene wise, or even just coder wise, if I were to do a system like that, I would think that a character could be a member of 2 servers, one PvE, one PvP, but you decide which one's active. And there obviously is a timer or some sort of limiter, so you can't just constantly swap back and forth. But, you know, if you say, okay, I want to do PvP this week, it would take you to your designated PvP server. And even if there's only 2 or 3, that's not necessarily bad. Even if there's like 20 PvE, because that would make the PvP ones incredibly populated.
Yeah.
Which I know comes with downsides. I know. But and when you're tired of it, it's just the same thing. You just say, okay, I'm done with PvP for now because I'm not doing so well this week. And it takes you back to your designated PvE server. It's not like you say I'm done PvPing and you can choose any of the PvE servers to go to. It's you can just only swap between the two. And as long as you allow tells or direct messages, private messages, whatever you want to call them, as long as you allow those between those 2 servers, I don't really think there's going to be much of an issue. I mean, even if you make them global, granted, there's still downsides to it. But I mean, that would still help kind of keep your community together, because you could still talk in guild chat, you can still talk in tells or whatever, and that way, you know, with a guild, you could say like, you know, I'm taking the week off raiding, I'm going to go to a PvP server, and 3 or 4 of my buddies are going with me. Granted, it will cause issues, but still, we're not going to focus on that. You guys can go over to the PvP server, have a great time for a little bit. When you get tired of it, go back. You know, and technically, if the rewards are balanced, you may or may not fall behind the raid force in terms of, like, in that 1 week, you may still be a viable member. You know, you won't be so behind in the gear that could run into issues, unless you know you swap and don't play, obviously.
That's how they did it with you know, Landmark. You had your global chat where you could chat with everybody on every server. Then you had your server-specific chat. You had your guild chat, and then same with the voice over IP. Something we also have to address as well. We know that VR are planning on having in-game voice over IP chat systems, and the way they did it in Landmark was they had their proximity chat, they had their guild chat. You could only talk with the people in proximity chat or guild chat if they were on the same server as you. So that's a way of doing it. Now, obviously, looking at it from the border perspective, wanting to chat with everybody over a voice over IP, they did that through private channels that you could create. So you had your global channel, you could chat with everybody. Then you had your internal channels. So there's definitely ways to do this. Look at what Swatty just said about what about having a twin server. So when you make a character, you choose 2 servers, one PvE and the other PvP, RP, PvP, PvE, or whatever, and you can switch between those. That's another way of doing it. I personally think that it's kind of a double-bladed sword with that one for me personally. Having a twin server where I create a character and he's basically split into the 2, on a PvP server, on an RP server, on a PvE server. So I'm kind of having to do double standards.
Right.
So I'm playing up.
It's another domain to manage, and then it's probably more overhead for VR.
Right. But I mean, the whole point of the whole server swap thing is because you want Pantheon to be a game that you can really dedicate yourself to for the long haul. And the thought of making another character that's going to occupy a very large amount of time to some people can feel very daunting, especially if you're more on the casual side, you know, because it could take you 6 months or even a year to get to max level on one. And now, if you want a PvP and PvE, you're looking at probably doubling that easy.
Look at the customer service aspect of it, though. Look at this from a VR perspective on showing true customer service. Now, instead of charging you $50 to transfer your character over to a different shard, or give you a token for when they shut down a server, that kind of eliminates that aspect of things. they're offering 100% customer service because, hey, guess what? You're not server bound. You can go and switch from server to server, and if they close the server down, it's not really necessarily going to affect you anymore. You just, switch from server A PvE to server B because they closed down server A. There's no extra charge, there's no costs involved, and that shows a true support.
Elder Scrolls did that really well with their mega server. I mean, whenever I jump back into that's not my prime MMO, but whenever I jump back in, the community is still fairly full. One thing I do want to point out, we have you guys brought up some good points, and I kind of want to trail into the second, so we don't overlay with the VR stream at 2 p.m. today.
Yep.
Is the objective-based matches. So Age of Conan didn't really have it, but Star Wars: The Old Republic did have some pretty good objective-based matches. And one of the suggestions I was sending to Voices of Terminus was that standard capture the flag, but in like a hut ball form. So Star Wars: Old Republic took the standard capture the flag, but then turned it into like a sports arena where people were leaping all around.
I loved hut ball. Oh my god.
That was amazing.
Hut ball was one of those games where it's like my friend got me to try it when we first started playing SWTOR. And my whole thought was, it's PvP. It probably looks better in the previews than it actually is.
I'll quickly answer a question in chat. Leonard2050. At the moment, the way it's planned, the game itself, it's going to be open world. There's going to be minimal close quarters encounters where you go in with your group or raid. So technically, at the moment, you can think of raiding being open for everyone to engage in. So first come, first serve, more like. That's the approach that they're kind of aiming for. You're going to have some close quarters.
If I remember correctly, I believe what they had said was something along the lines of, there are going to be no or very few instances.
Mm-hmm.
Instances are reserved for like story type things. However, their goal is to add so much content that even if one raid force were to try and take everything out, it would not be able.
Because
and they could shorten the respawn timers for those raid bosses and not have like a week lockout.
Oh yeah, I mean, I enjoy raiding, I enjoy grouping, and that was a big concern for me too. But I guess
they mentioned on the Pantheon difference as well, the switching out. The NPCs battling each other technically, where you have like a horde of orcs involved in an area or zone that get wiped out and are fed up with getting beaten up, for instance, that they go and pack their bags, move on, and now the goblins come in. So technically you could think about maybe something happening along the lines of a raid boss or a raid zone completely disappearing and moving on somewhere else because they got completely wiped out. So there's going to be challenge there regardless when it comes to the raiding and the game itself, open or not. So that's definitely an interesting way to look at it.
So, chat saying we're off topic.
No.
We don't do that.
So one thing I haven't seen in kind of in Dark Age of Camelot, and kind of in Warhammer Online, is an objective-based mode where you got point A, point B, and point C. For Honor kind of does it, but not really. Where point A is one team and point C is another, and they're fighting over for B. But point A and point C, so are towers, and that you can build up. Because one of the fun things in Guild Wars 2 and ESO were your community. There's 20 to 40 of you standing on the castle walls while there's 100 guys trying to knock down something. If they're able to make that smaller and apply that into like a queued instance where you'd have points A, B, and C. Point B would be open battles where guys are hitting their EP and ego and dueling out in the open, and then you got the more ranged strategic, holding down the bunker, was another type of idea.
Yeah, one of the only PvP scenarios, I guess you would call them, that really appealed to me was the siege. I love that idea of there's only a few people on the defending end, and being a defender obviously gives you certain advantages, maybe traps or the like, or natural bottlenecks, etc.
Yeah.
Holding off like multiple times your numbers really gives you that epic feeling. Even if you end up losing, it feels like an epic encounter because you're just like, oh my god, there was a sea of enemies.
What about opening that up and not just looking at it from the instance aspect? I could even see. This is something that I would. This is what I'm talking about. Me coming from PvE. If I go into PvP, I would love to see something similar to this, but in the open world, where maybe the game itself, the server itself, has like similar world events, like rifts open up in a zone. So you've got like you've got outpost A, B, and C opened up. They're open for somebody to come in there and take them over. Now you've taken them over, and there's a prime goal for everybody. You got these 3 outposts, and in the center is the reward at the end of the day. The siege castle, the castle that you get to take over. Now, depending on how fast you are, how quick you build up your outposts, you can even technically buy resources. So the encounters in that zone, you could technically hire to go and attack outpost B or outpost A. So you're sending goblins towards outpost A and B. So the players got to fight against the goblins, and they got to take care of the players themselves. And you kind of have like a proper siege battle going on, and people trying to force their way through to get to the castle, to get to the end boss there or whatever, and defeat him, and declare themselves the winners of that PvP battle. I can even see that happen in the open world, and that's what would interest me, because it comes down to strategy. Then thinking about what you're doing, planning what you're going to be doing, and flanking people, not just running at each other and beating each other down. That's what I would find engaging in PvP, is stuff like that. So I'm definitely. I definitely think that would be a brilliant way of doing it. Is not just limiting it to the instanced, but in the open world as well. You can have these outposts put there from the game itself. And go on.
My concern though is Guild Wars 2 has changed, and I think it's happening in Elder Scrolls as well. Is it's too easy to take down walls. So there's like ninja capping of buildings. So as long as the mitigation on the walls is good, then you will continue to have that epic feeling, and all those goblin sending would be pretty cool.
Yep.
It's obvious problem in a lot of different aspects of PvP in most of these modern MMOs. I mean, I loved PvP in SWTOR. I don't remember the name of the domination map, where it was capture the points.
Oh yeah, I forget.
I mean, it's like, I think it was Alderaan or something or other, but whatever it was. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Hudball. And the thing is, I enjoyed it early on when players had larger health pools, because the fights lasted longer than 10 seconds.
The way they could...
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
Sorry, the way I see this working, though, is... Let's say, for instance, now we have this event going on, and Outpost C take over. Yeah, they are declared the winners. You could technically give them a time frame of a week or whatever. A week in that zone for a week. That's their zone. They are the rulers of that zone. They can't be attacked. Now, after that week period is gone, it now starts to flash. It opens up. It's now open for challenge. You can now come in and try and bring that tower down. You bring that tower down. Now the next event would happen. A couple of days later or a couple of hours later, it opens up again. It's now open for somebody else to come and try and take it over. So that's the way I could see that kind of balance out that problem with having walls being too weak or your life pool not being high enough. You basically have a limited immunity. You're declared the winner. You now have a week to run havoc in this zone or in this area, and it's up to you to protect it at the end.
Another thought about the open world outpost kind of PvP. The immunity is great as long as it's like just a short duration to help people like repair walls and stuff. But the thing is, say you're I log in and it's off hours. I'm on this PvP server with outposts that I can take over, and well, there's not a lot of people on, so chances are there's not going to be anybody at this particular outpost, because say there's several around the world. This gives me time to actually gain a little bit of experience repairing walls, repairing defenses, building traps, whatever, you know? And even though I'm not there to see it in action, I can still kind of get that feeling of I helped my team, or my side, or my faction, or what have you.
Because
It would be nice. It would be nice for you to actually have like small little mini things to do, like create a trap or build spikes on the wall, you know, that are going to give you bonuses if it does become a large scale event at a later stage.
Because what I miss, I can't remember what MMO it was. I played an MMO, and you went into a zone, and you basically had steps going through. You had, reach the first hurdle, then you reach the second hurdle, you reach the third hurdle. You go through different stages. And that's the kind of thing that I would love to see happen in PvP as well. Not just your typical leaderboard stuff where it's just a matter of beating each other down. Actually having to go through different stages to achieve the ultimate goal of declaring yourself the winner is what I would really love to see happen. Because that brings more challenge to it. You basically start off going through these different stages, working your way up. That gives you means to communicate with people, to engage and interact with people, to talk to each other, help each other out with the gear, make sure that everybody's getting helped along, rather than just beating each other down. Because I'm sorry, it's I don't see the fun in this in the long term. We've had this now for almost 17 years now. PvP hasn't really evolved all that much. There's so much that they could do to this and add so much more to attract even the PvEers.
Well, that's the big thing, though. That's like the big thing. A lot of hardcore PvPers don't want these.
Yes, they don't want us in there.
But here's the thing, okay? And this goes for both sides. I mean, if you make it appealing to the other side, that only serves to benefit you. I mean, as a PvPer, the less people that are here playing PvP, the less people I have to fight against, which means the less chance I'm going to have enjoyable encounters. If you are the biggest, baddest mofo there is on the server, well, you're not going to have a lot of fun. There's like 4 people to kill,
Yeah.
But even if they're, they're new, they're not super experienced yet, or they don't have a lot of skill yet, they still present a target for you, something to occupy your time. So chasing them off is honestly the dumbest thing that anybody can do. But the same goes for PvE. If you look down on PvPers for whatever reason, and when some PvPer comes over to PvE and you just, poke and prod at them and chase them away, that's one less person that you have to potentially group with, potentially raid with.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have even missed out on a friend that, you could have gone off skipping through freaking Black Dagger Keep all afternoon. I mean, who knows,
And I didn't... Go on.
I agree with you. Oh, go ahead. Or do you want me?
No, go on.
I agree with you because when I tried to get my wife to start playing some of these MMOs, we started off on PvP servers and, she got her butt kicked. So then we transferred to a PvE server. And then I wanted to do PvP because my sister and I are good at it. So we wanted to do threes because we like the competitive nature of, 2v2, 3v3, whatever those esport type of stuff they want to go towards, that competitiveness can be separate. But from a casual perspective for my wife is we started queuing up for some of these battlegrounds, and when I think they should put a regulation or a limit in place where only 2 players can form a group when queuing for some type of PvP objective match. Or if you have 10 of you, it splits you guys up. There was one game that did it, and I forget which one it was. But, I mean, you can have 10 of you in a group, but then it splits you up. This way it's fun because you're beating your old your friend in the face, and then instead of getting rage quit, hatred towards the person, it's like, oh, you got me really good because you have that prior relationship between the two. And my wife would probably enjoy it more.
And going into the internal PvP instance, well, another thing that I would definitely like, and I really hope that VR do this, is add environmental effects. Have traps also be a concern for you in a PvP match. Stuff, have weather, for instance, affect you maybe. Acclimation effect. Actually have other things affect you when you're going into a PvP match and competing against each other. So that keeps you on your toes as well. You're going to have to think about the randomness of traps and weather affecting you. Exactly. Exactly.
The same thing goes with PvE though.
Yeah. Oh, that's a given. PvE that has to be. Yeah. Yeah.
If I can predict it, I don't want it.
Exactly. So that would make it more interesting as well, because when I go into a game, it's all about stats, strategy, thinking. It's like a game of chess for me. When I go and group up with somebody, or get a group, we go out and want to go do a dungeon, or go and do a raid, or go and do whatever. I treat it like a game of chess. I always have my steps planned out, and that's what I expect from PvP. But for me, in most PvP games, it's just a beatdown, and that's not fun to me. Just because I'm... Go on.
That's probably why MOBAs are growing in popularity.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is elements of strategy, because it's like, my build is better than your build with some mixture of skill.
Exactly.
I mean, the community's saying make a big Dota.
Yeah, oh god, I think I just lost my train of thought. That hasn't happened in a while.
No, it hasn't.
It'll come to me again.
I mean, leaderboards are great, and it's definitely something that they need to have, but they should offer the player community a lot more than just going for the leaderboards. And Lex, see, I got Lex's train of thought back. I did that on purpose, by the way.
It came back. In respect to how a lot of these matches are just giant beatdowns, right?
Hmm.
I don't even see how that's enjoyable from the victor's point of view, because it's not a fight. It kind of makes it feel like, as a PvEer, running through a newbie zone, killing graves spawn or graves, or the newbie when you're max level. Sure, it's fun for the first 5 times, but after that you're kind of like, whoa, it'd be like 4 button presses to kill this guy. How is that enjoyable?
I mean,
it's not a fight.
I have to ask though, for people like you, Lex, and Phaiden, who have done PvP on an MMO, did they have even levels in the PvP matches? Were there levels in the matches? Basically, beginner, novice, expert, hardcore.
Yeah. If you're doing competitive matchmaking, but for general queues, no, there's no levels. But if you're doing the competitiveness, yes. But to touch on what Lexer said, so that, when you guys did the interview on me, right after I had the kid, my son, shouldn't call him the kid, but, so I was the first paladin with Thunder Fury, because just luck of the draw, I like doing EverQuest epic line, so no one in my guild knew what Thunder Fury was, and they saw it was a long quest, so they didn't do it. So I had tier 2 Judgment gear, which stacked with Thunder Fury.
Mm-hmm.
I was dominating Alteric Valley, Terran Mill, and all those places. And actually, right before the Burning Crusade went out, I did get really bored, and I sold that character because I was like, there was no challenge. So I did get bored because I didn't have that thrill, and I started a new alt.
Mm. So I think that's another thing as well, because when I look at the PvP from EverQuest 2, you had your group, you went into the matchmaking, you found a second group, but it was totally unbalanced. One group had 3 healers in it, the other one had pure DPS, no healer, and it was like, wow, this is really really well thought out. This is really smart. This is really clever. What is the point of us going into this match? So if they do something like that, they should put requirements in play to balance it out and make it a true challenge. That's what I expect. I want to be challenged when I go into a PvP match, but on a level that makes sense.
Right. I can agree, because I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than just trying to, like, say you're a casual player, you want to play in the arenas, you go with your buddy 2v2, and you know, you're still kind of getting the feel for your character. And then you get steamrolled because this team is like ranked 5 on the server. And, you're like,
and you're just starting off. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't even know what I did wrong.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
dead, you know? And you're just like, so.
That's why they could basically bring in. That's why I asked you guys if they had leaderboards, you know, levels and everything. That's what they could technically do. Is you have to go through a stipulation. You start off as a novice or a beginner in these matches, and you gain experience through that. So you have another bar that you basically level up, and once you and basically the game would aid you as well to some point, or even have players, even give that to players maybe that could take on the role of being a mentor for you. You know, PvP mentors who would basically bring you through the ranks and help you, you know, go from a novice to a beginner to a more seasoned player to an expert, basically. And then once you've gone through these levels, if you're an expert, you can't go into the novice area and fight those poor guys. You're locked out. You're an expert. You are now on the expert level. You know, you've reached the ultimate level. That's where you're competing in. And then you've got, you know, you have different leaderboards there as well. So that gives another more chance, and different rewards as well. You can go through different systems of rewarding the people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you brought up. Go ahead.
Well, again.
No, I didn't.
What I would think, like, obviously you would want to do ranked matches where you could change your rating, and that rating would obviously determine who you're within a certain threshold.
Yeah.
But you know, say my team's not on, or only one of the 3 guys I PvP with for my team are around, so we want to do an unranked match. Well, that's a chance where it's like, even if you join as a group, you know, there's a chance that my partner could be on the other team. Although the downside to that is, it's, you know, what if we were trying to work with our synergy, you know? That would be difficult. But you're unranked, so even if you lose, it doesn't really matter. You know? It's just more of a, you want to go and have some fun, and get some very minor rewards, but your rating doesn't change.
Exactly. You could basically unrank yourself and go into a unranked match or whatever. So you could. It's basically, that's what it's all about. Giving the players and offering the game options. You know, let these be, you know, tick boxes or something like that. That a player can go and decide, right, I've reached expert, but I want to go and play with my friends that aren't or haven't been around so often or are fairly new to it. So I'm going to go and uncheck myself and go into I can go into an uncompetitive mode where I don't gain any experience or anything like that, but I'm helping my people, the new people there, gain their experience. They're unaffected. That's a way of I would most probably approach that.
I think we kind of slid into the arenas topic without really telling people. What we were just talking about is primarily to the arena side of things. Would be instance, teams kind of thing. We kind of slid out of the open world stuff and didn't really tell anybody.
That's what we do, though, don't we?
Oh yeah, we segue and U-turn and take the train and then take a boat back. And...
We confuse ourselves.
Because this kind of touches on, you know, the PvP rewards that Phaiden put down for us with the new topic with his new topic of min-maxing playstyle as well. This is another way of min-maxing. You know, you start with min and then you max yourself out to be, as Smoko put it, you have a diamond. You reach diamond level.
Yeah, or however you want to rate it.
Yeah, exactly. Phaiden, do you want to move us on? Or...
Yeah,
what's the time left on for the stream?
We have about 10 minutes. We can push another 10 minutes.
So I guess because we kind of touched on a lot of the points, just different spurts, but PvP rewards would probably be the last item. So you know, for those competitive matches, you know, what should the PvP reward system be? Should it be gear that is strong in PvP and then transitions into a weaker tier so that they can use it in PvE? And then also the other topic being, you know, those PvP specific rewards, you know, are those necessary, or do you feel like you're gonna spend $300 to pay some, you know, to outsource someone to do your PvP for you just to get that mount type of thing? So if should there be PvP specific rewards, or should it be obtained via PvE and PvP?
I look at this from a non-PvPer's perspective.
Yeah.
And say that in that respect, I think that the rewards should all be created equal for the simple fact that different types of PvP require very different skills. Although most PvPers will say hitting a person is just hitting a person. No. Teamwork versus working in an open world versus working in a solo capacity is completely different gameplay.
Yep.
But this way, you can still play to your strength. If they were to do that, though, they would have to make, you know, we'll just assume currency, even though I hate currency systems. That the currency required would be damn near tremendous in the amount required.
That's a good balance. Yeah, that's a good trade-off.
The way I look at it like this, since they're going to split up the way your PvP character is going to have its balancing, and the PvP is going to have its balancing, I think they can go ahead and give PvP specific rewarding and actually benefit from that, because if they're going to balance the character differently than what they do with the PvE character, then it makes actually more sense to have PvP specific rewards, gear, and so forth, because it's going to be rated off of the PvP aspect. Whereas for me on a PvE server, I don't care about the PvP reward. Breastplate with, I don't know, +5 slashing or this and that. I want to benefit from the PvE aspect of it. So I think they if they are going to split it up into two different balancing systems, then they should also approach the gear that way as well. Because there's going to be different aspects that are going to come into play more with PvP, like stamina, strength, agility, charisma, and so forth. Those are going to be major stats that are going to be very important. Your slashing, your piercing, and so forth. Whereas for PvE, they are important, but they have different effects technically towards how your character is going to be affecting the world and engaging in the world with the mobs and the environment. So it's two different complete systems. So I think they should basically have PvP specific rewarding. Yeah.
Well, I think that I personally don't think they should actually. If whatever you can get in the PvP, you should be able to get into the PvE.
Yeah. Especially cosmetic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if one's going to take 100 hours to get in the PvE, it also make it fairly difficult to get in the PvP side of it. Yes, there might be changes to the stats on there which might be PvP specific, but that can be tied to the PvP reward itself, and shouldn't, if you're going to take that piece of equipment into the PvE area, you shouldn't lose the stats of the PvE side of it as well.
Well, it all depends really what you're doing. You know, if they're going to have complete separate servers where you can't go on a PvP with your PvE character and vice versa, then, you know, definitely split it up. If it's something that they're going to do where you as a character can choose and switch between the servers, then similar to what they did with EverQuest 2, where you had your PvP stats on there as well as your PvE. But basically, if you're in PvE mode, those stats don't come into effect, then yeah, you could have it equal for everybody. Cosmetic stuff should be the same. You know, fluff stuff, everybody should be able to get.
Right. You know, one of the benefits of doing the dual system the way they're doing, completely cut off from each other, is that you could theoretically make PvE gear just as viable in PvP without any issue. If they were to do the server swap thing, that would help in terms of accessibility,
Mm.
but it could hurt in terms of competition, because all of a sudden, you know, when you're someone who's very, very competitive, you tend to keep a close eye on the competition, kind of figure out what their game plan is, how they're doing, etc., etc.
Mm.
The nature of the game when you take it that seriously, and that would kind of make it impossible for a very competitive person to kind of gauge their opponents, because we'll say that there's limited armor models for this example. Well, the iron armor from level 12 looks the same as the, you know, crystalline uber armor from the endgame rating stuff. When I say endgame,
Mm.
and all of a sudden, you know, they think this person's not a threat, and it turns out that, oh god, they're destroying us. What is going on? Take him down, quick, 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 kind of thing. Good and bad. I see it as a bad, but some people might see that as a good thing.
Mm.
Well, one last thing is, so I'm glad that you checked out For Honor. So reward system, not just in like actual physical tangible items, but like points and experience towards some ranking. You know, what For Honor does really well is, you know, 5v5, even if your team loses, you still get a good amount of points because you individually help push the match or objective to the goal.
Yeah,
And
I love how in For Honor, one of its primary shining features is the fact that it rewards you for your performance, not you for your team's performance.
Anyway, guys, we're kind of cutting into the. We're getting very close to the stream from VR. So all of you out there who are watching, Visionary Realms are streaming today. Exactly in 7 minutes, they'll be streaming with Co Carnage. You can watch either on Co Carnage's Twitch or on Visionary Realms directly. If you're hanging around and going to be up a bit, after they finish their stream, VR finish their stream, we will shortly after that we will be going live ourselves again to talk about what we just saw. So you can come back here and hang out with us, and we'll talk about the VR stream. As you can see, there's definitely a lot more room for discussion here for the PvP. We couldn't obviously touch on everything, so I'm sure that we will end up having further shows with Phaiden and to finish this off, and hopefully we might get more and more details over time on PvP, so we can go into more detail on it.
Or min max rating. Sorry,
Mhm.
that's my favorite.
We'll definitely get those shows in as well, because we're gonna have to basically cut this now, because I did want to record the stream so that we can.
I've got both of the streams up, and we're clear so far.
Okay, good. So we still got. So let me know, Lex. Your final thoughts, Phaiden, for this show.
Just it would be interesting to see what they implement. Obviously, the focus on PvE, but if there's some type of form of PvP besides the PvP shards, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, because this is all speculation. You know, like Lex has put the disclaimers up more and more. We don't know how it's going to be.
I did that.
Yes, you did that, didn't you? Oh, the bot did that, exactly. Sorry, the FAQ bot did that, the bot. It's all speculation. We do not know exactly what they have planned. Okay, so until we know otherwise and hear otherwise from VR, this is all speculation and just idea threading on what they could do to make it more fun, make it more engaging to the general population. Because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would love to PvP, that haven't tried it before, but they do have valid concerns as to why they don't do it. Because it is a special group of people. Just as the PvP people see the PvE people as a special group of people. And it is rightfully so. So anyway, everybody over to the VR stream, and we will see you hopefully.
We'll host it here too, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely try and host it here as well. So we will see you all in about an hour, roughly, depending on how long.
Starts. Represent VoT.
Represent.
So
shout it out. Be proud.
So take care, guys, and we'll see you all in a bit, hopefully. And Phaiden, thanks again for joining us. I wish we had more time to go into more of the discussion. I'm sorry for cutting it short today. We'll definitely sit down and arrange further dates when we get back from our leave. I think we'll start off with some of the other topics that you suggested.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, guys. See you all in a bit. Bye-bye.